yourself is how do you, at both maybe NOLA and even at your current practice as well from oncology practice, how have you deployed some of these? I don't know if you deploy AI tools or anything from a digital perspective. Have you thought about implementing anything in, say, the recent years, or have you implemented anything in recent years?
So we actually, when we collect data on the social determinants of health, every Friday the team meets and it's actually in a Google spreadsheet. So it kind of is technology use. And then we are working on building up the bridge. So coming back to fragmentation, so there are multiple websites in the US that provide information on the resources to meet with unmet health related social needs. For example, findhelp.org, samari.org. So right now we are using the manual process, but we are looking into creating a technology bridge. So if I find a patient who needs transportation and utility help, the community resource list from the findhelp.org or from the madi.org can automatically connect the patient to the contact information of the person who can facilitate addressing the unmet need. So we are working on that and hopefully we'll be able to identify that sooner than later.
Yeah.
Big thing on AI, I mean, I've always, so one thing that I struggle with is I have had a lot of interest in hematology. And even now, I can identify with reasonable confidence a patient with myelodysplasia looking at the blood smear. And then we choose who we need to do bone marrow test on. So if an AI can identify predictable analytics from looking at the blood smear, the red cell morphology, no, dimorphic red cells, macrocytic hypochromic red cells with platelet anisocytosis and with variation in granularity in the white cells, that could be predictive of this patient going to be developing myelodysplasia, if not now, in near future. Same is an ethnic minority patient, like a black patient who has a high risk of developing multiple myeloma. If they have anemia, if they have what called rula formation on the red cell, as if like red cells are stacked on each other, and if you see the hazy blue background with the paraprotein, you may want to follow them carefully because they may be at the risk of developing multiple myeloma. So there are a lot of algorithms that can be developed. I've shared this with some of the labs, but it's still some of the other falls on the deaf ears, for lack of better words.
Understood, understood. It's one thing that I would say in the healthcare space, there is a little bit of delay in adopting various new technologies, primarily because they need to be vetted, and they're vetted usually in a very specific type of framework, like clinical trials and so forth. So just so the audience understands, it's not like you don't understand that these technologies could be helpful. It definitely takes time.
Yeah, well, if you look at the implications, I hate to bring kind of disparity, but if you look at the implications, so if you develop an AI-based algorithm of predictive analytics of, say, this patient only has iron deficiency, this patient only has myelodysplasia, for countries like India, South Asia, Africa, you take a small minivan fitted with a small blood analyzer. And if you look at the blood smear of people with anemia, you may be able to help so many people by narrowing down who needs a follow up and who does not need a follow up.
Absolutely, and I think you're right. I think in some ways these nations that are like developing nations may be the first to adopt sort of new technologies like this, because I mean the U.S. and Canada as well, but more so the U.S. has just such a big infrastructure already built up to allow some of these advanced or basically advanced medical procedures that something like AI maybe not, it's only incrementally better, as opposed to for like a developing country who had nothing, something
Mhm.
is exponentially better, right? And I always use the example of cell phones. When cell phones came out, most of the US and Canada, I mean, for us, we already had landline. So we definitely having cell phone is incrementally better. But some place like Thailand went from no connection to subsequently every single person in Thailand has like two cell phones.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And going back to same nation. So if you go back to India, if you drive and if you come across a beggar, he can actually take your tip via cell phone. There are something called Paytm, so they can you just give them some kind of Paytm access and they'll take like 5 rupees.
That's great.